Hey, welcome to Cold Turkey Podcast. This week I'm sitting down with Dustin. Dustin has roller coaster life. I mean, Dustin has gone through a lot of stuff. I was about to say a lot of shit, but I'm being careful here. At the same time, there was a lot of indication and hints in his early life that he would be facing what eventually came to him, and that's probably one of the most fascinating aspect of the conversation I had with him. So I don't want to spoil any of of his story, but hang on, it's going to be quite interesting. Last thing I'm going to say is let the people know about the podcast, let the people share the podcast. We're Tuesday evening, and I saw today that actually has crossed over the 15,000 listen of the whole the whole Cold Turkey podcast. And so I'm flattered and humbled and thankful that it's still going well, and I can still growing. So share the podcast, let the people know about the podcast, and help them just connect to it. I receive a lot of message of people not being able to find. It's not it's not necessarily something that's easy to find for people that don't know about podcasting and how it works. So let people know how to find it. And without further ado, here's Dustin. Enjoy. Hey, Dustin, how you doing?
Hey, Alex, I'm doing really well.
The first question is, pretty much a question that I do ask. I've been asking for the past 8 months. Where are you from, and where are you located, and how's the pandemic been going for you? Every conditions, every situation is different. So probably by the geography or where you are, you're going to tell me, how it's been doing in your area.
So I'm from Arizona, which has been in the news with the spikes over the summer and all that fun stuff. I'm actually up in northern Arizona, outside of Sedona, which is a beautiful little town. But we've had, in my area personally, we've had relatively low impact. I mean, Maricopa is a much bigger county, and they have a bunch going on. What we've done locally is, we have mask mandates in public and in place and stuff like that, like everywhere. But for us, to be honest, we've been relatively untouched. We've been able to continue to do in-person meetings, and we of course had to have heavy discussions about kind of stuff like that. And we talked with city managers and all of that to get guidance and clarification. But we've been maintaining. I mean, it's been hard on everybody. We've spiked with use and abuse and all of that stuff here as well. But we're moving forward.
I haven't yet asked the question, but if you do or have attended meetings, has this impacted meeting rooms?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I mean, there's a positive and a negative to it. So I do sit on the board of my club, and we had several nights where we debated in March and early summer, and what's the right thing to do, because that's really what it comes down to. In the middle of a pandemic, people are scared. The anxieties are running high. And over the discussions that we've had, we decided that it was worth the risk to continue to keep the doors open. Now, all of our older members, which we have also encouraged to, protect themselves, really started to drop off. And, in a lot of these meeting rooms, the old timer, they're a staple. And once that started to drop off, we started to lose a lot of our attendance. So we continued to run and operate at a loss for pretty much for the entire year outside of January. But we've continued to have meetings. Now the positives are we have people coming from all over, people from Phoenix, from Flagstaff, hours and hours away from where we're located, because they know we have in-person live meetings, and that connection is needed so much, and
For sure.
to reach out and talk and have that connection. that's important. That's important for the recovery and the community, as I'm sure we're all aware.
Absolutely. And like I think it's been a long debate here, like and like they pretty much tended to side on the way of not opening the meetings.
Mhm.
But like as fellowship members, like we're worried, like worried of not
Really.
seeing some of the faces we were used to see at meetings, not being on Zoom meetings. And so, like it makes you question, like where they are and how they're doing. Some, like you don't have the information or the contact information. So you're like, like I used to see that guy pretty much at that meeting all the time. And, like now that the meeting's been converted to virtual, like I don't see him.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. Like the anxiety levels are tremendous, like they're super high and it's I think like it's a bit underestimated in terms of public health, like like
Oh,
the
absolutely.
mental health situation.
Yeah.
um
That was one of our big factors too, was the mental health aspect of it. We should be the last place that closes. That was an argument that I presented because, the courts are still sending us newcomers, as they are, on their court cards and stuff like that. And a lot of people, and not necessarily people coming in on court cards, but just newcomers in general that have absolutely ruined their life. They can't afford technology. They can't afford to get a phone that has the quality and find the people and hop on Zoom or know about some of these private groups on Facebook. So that was another factor in our decision making. It's like, we stay open for the newcomer, and to see him come in and just that look of relief that there's a meeting going on and they calm, and it absolutely changes the trajectory of their life right there. I mean, that's worth it. That's worth, I suppose, the risk. I mean, I hate debating about the virus, and we're all trying to do our best, but in our community, it's important. It's that having meetings is very important. And
and for some,
people.
like the earliest estimate I've heard, because like there was some contact of a contact that works for like a World Health Organization,
Mhm.
and the lady was actually telling us that we're talking about like March, April next year, but like
Mhm.
the first phases, which is far from being us, like it would be like
Right.
the elders and some of the more fragile targets.
Mhm.
So like that would mean more than a full year without a physical meeting
Right.
for us,
Mhm.
which is like I would estimate disastrous.
Absolutely. And I mean, I applaud that you continue to do this, because that's hard. That's hard to do. There's such a thing as Zoom fatigue and not being able to connect through devices, as I'm sure you're aware.
Absolutely, and I was I work in technology and in sales and um, even convention were tough. Like so like cramming hours and hours over a week of continuous new information was like you would get like almost not almost but physical fatigue from attending all these sessions, and
Oh,
they
absolutely.
converted that to virtual through Zoom, and
Mhm.
I wouldn't last a fifth of that. Like I would be just burned out. Like
Right.
fuck that.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
and just in terms of dynamic, like especially in sales, um, like like the power dynamic, the sixth sense of like someone's how they feel, how they how they behave, and like their physical like their physical communication. Most of it is gone through
Yeah.
Zoom, even though you see their face. I mean, like you
Right.
can't see their posture, you can see and so
Mhm.
virtual meetings are pretty much the same.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I agree. We have incorporated, like, because I do in-person meetings. Like, it's what I do. And there's a couple of meetings where we have a laptop set up on the stand, so whoever needs to join in can join in. And a lot of my friends that have kind of scattered across the country and the globe, they love zooming into some of the meetings. So that opportunity is still there, but I can't see anything really replacing an in-person meeting and just that overwhelming emotion. So, my heart goes out to all of our community that really has to buckle down and hit those Zoom meetings and, do what they got to do to survive.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. And, yeah, we see more and more like isolated, like you talked about private groups happening in Facebook. I see more and more like private meetings taking place, like where you reach out almost one by one the people that you want to attend you to the meeting, and like if they're not there, like you question you and that makes it more personal. It doesn't change that like the physical, and doesn't come like close to what a physical meeting is, but the fact that it becomes almost like an intimate thing.
Right.
Changes the dynamic of it, and it doesn't get lost in translation of having 50 windows open of, like people all over the place, right. Like we're for 15, 20. So, like you can actually reach out to each of every one of these individuals and say, hey, how are you doing X and how are you doing Y? And, and have like like a more intimate setting for, and it's an interaction, like it's nothing like, like someone sharing and everyone listens. It's more of an interaction conversation, and,
Right.
It makes it quite different that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've run a meeting in my backyard. It's just a campfire meeting. It's open to all of any 12-step program. It doesn't matter what you have. It's just designed to be an open format. And this was pre-corona, and like during the height of everything, I felt like I was running at some sort of underground meeting, like the French Resistance during World War II or something like that, because it's like, I don't know if people are going to turn me in or what's going on, but I have all these cars parked in front of my house. We're out back with a campfire. We're having a meeting and just sharing in a very, very general way, to try and just keep the hope alive, because I'm sure I've lost a handful of friends to overdosing and this disease. I think it's going to take more of a toll, and not only on just the recovery community, but on the population as a whole.
Absolutely.
This is trauma that's kids are going to, have to work through and work out, and it is going to change our society. And I don't think in the way that people understand, but, like for people in the recovery community that do have some time, like we have to be there. And thank God we have a program that centers around reducing fear and facing our fear and recovering, like that we get to kind of champion. And like, this is our time. If there's ever a moment for someone in a 12-step program, it's in the middle of a pandemic. I've been doing all these steps and all this work, and my sponsor's been harping on me. And you know what? I get to actually practice it on a daily basis. So here I go.
You're absolutely right. Like recently, which was, I coined our second wave, they shut down gyms, and the gym owner actually lost their shit, like saying, guys, like you have no idea, like the long-term hurtful negative impact you're going to have on our population. Like people are coming in to vent off, to, like keep their sanity. Shutting down gyms it's going to be more damaging than keeping them open. And I truly believe that it's the same for, like kids right now, not being able to hang out with their friends. Like someone, like I was listening to a TV show, and someone said, like, what do you do between 18 and 22? You party. You're a party machine. Like, so
right.
Like
that's what you're built for at those ages. You gotta sow those oats.
Yeah. And so if I shut this down for you, and I shoot you back to your parents' basement, you're going to lose your mind. Like you're
oh yeah. Well, we've had incidences locally here with not only fentanyl overdoses, but just a bunch of suicide, just because of the anxiety, not being able to hang out with the friends, or attend football games and things like that. We're still having those things go on, but it's just everything just gets limited, and life gets restricted. And humans, I think, just by nature, we're social creatures. We have to be close to each other. We have to feed off each other, and there's that interaction and that flow that comes with it.
And it's a primary need. Interacting with like even beyond your second half. Like I do am married, and like I do have kids, but but like it was like at the first confinement was like pretty much like everything was shut down, and like they shut everything down. And I remember, I think it was 45 or 50 days in that, like I looked at my wife, and we had like the routine shower in the evening, and we were all of three of, like in the shower, and, like our kid is quite young. And I was like, we shouldn't be on top of each other like that. Like my wife is more the social type. I'm more of, like kind of like hanging out in my little cave, and, like doing my shit. And she likes, the happy hours, and, like hanging out with her girlfriends and all, like, and I was like, you should be with your friends, and I should be listening to and some crime docs, and
right. It's oh man, there's some aspects in there that you brought up that I really relate to. Because I'm a former Marine, right? So I went to Iraq and did all of this stuff. And like when we are in these little like pods right now, and people are doing these things that are just kind of like very routine, but not super interactive. So you're like almost confined, and you're kind of trapped in your house, and you just want to get out, and you want to get. So then you get in these mental routines, like you have, like your evening shower, like you were talking about, but you guys are just on top of each other all day long.
Yep.
That has long-term exhausting effects, mentally and physically. And, if you can't get out there and exercise and do your thing, you kind of get trapped in this routine that kind of eats you alive. I mean, that's been my observation anyway.
It is. And it just, like we pretty much had to point the elephant in the room, like just talk about it and say, like that's exhausting,
right.
Like some stand up here in Quebec said, like I never realized until the confinement that I thought I had my kids full time, not realizing that I was actually sharing 50-50 with daycare.
Right. It's a lot.
It is.
It is a lot. And that's, that's what I was kind of referenced my time serving. Like, we were sleeping on top of each other. We were with each other every day. And it was just like, we got to get through this. And that's just kind of what the entire world's going through right now. So,
yeah,
there is going to be some long lasting effects. They've already started, and we'll see more.
Yeah. It's crazy times, just crazy times. And, like it's why I do ask the questions every new episodes I put out, because situation's different, but I see like a median of, the same, pretty much like the same alert being rung by my guests and myself, like that, like people need to realize that, like the long lasting effect of that is way more scary than I would dare to say the pandemic itself.
Right. I mean, that's the real thing that you have to weigh out at this point. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's just and I don't think it looks good, but I don't want to make any calls, because with this program, it's like, I can't live in the future. I just have to do a day at a time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, wow. Amen to that.
Yeah.
All right, Dustin. So as I do every single week, I'm going to ask you to pretty much rewind that tape of your life story and bring me back to either your first memory of you using, or you being witness of, like you're kind of, and like you're probably going to draw me some of the family picture, but maybe someone's use that like has impacted you in your youth. Bring me back.
Yeah, absolutely. We can go. I come from a long line of alcoholics, and growing up, that was a huge influence on my life. Everyone was in fear that I was going to be an alcoholic. It's like, I think it's almost one of those things you're so worried about it that you actually called it into being, type of thing. And, my aunt, God love her, she's got 45 years of sobriety. I want to say about 44 years of sobriety right now. And she's kind of the first one that ever came into a 12-step program and really blazed the trail for like my family. But, before I get there, I have to get to the point of where I started drinking and using, because I was raised around, these AA sayings like, let go and let God. And, as like an 8-year-old, I'm like, what does that mean? I don't get it. Or,
So already
this stuff was always around me.
already that young, you
I started
heard.
seeing things, yes, from the program. So when my first drink was when I was 13, 12 or 13. I was just getting into be a freshman at high school. One of my cousins took me to Lake Pleasant here in Arizona. And it was a snapshot for my drinking career because I blacked out. I threw up. I almost got a DUI, and I was only 13 years old. I also almost died because we were throwing fireworks out onto Lake Pleasant, and like not the small fireworks or the fun ones or the bottle rockets, like the mortars, like the big ones that boom that they use professionally, and those would come zipping back into the camp, and it was just a mess. And for that time frame when I was 12, 13 years old, it scared me. Like it scared me, the effects that happened, because I didn't remember things. I blacked out. I threw up, like I said. I couldn't like operate my body, and it felt weird. So what happened is I didn't start drinking until the end of my senior year is when I really got going. So
What's the family picture like? Like are any siblings?
yeah, definitely. I've no one's in recovery except me right now.
Yep.
My nuclear family. My brother, he's currently serving time in Cali. Definitely some drug related charges. So, we could assume that he's probably a part of it. My aunt, she is 44 years sober. Her sister is 39 years sober. My cousin, she's 10, 11 years sober. I'm 6 years sober. I've got two cousins a generation below me that are just getting started. They just had their first year. So everyone in my family is either active or recovery. There's no one that's really in the middle. My mom, she is. She's neither. So when it comes to having it, like we've got it pretty good. For me, I have it on both sides of my family, for my dad's family and my mom's family. But the majority of my mom's family is in recovery. So, I have inspiration. So when I got to a point where I was ready to change, like I knew where to go.
And so, you said that in your senior year, like it came kind of back with a vengeance.
Definitely.
Was there any trigger for it? Or it was just like peer pressure and
man, where I'm at now in my life, I can look back and be like, oh yeah, yep, all those triggers. But then, I thought I was just trying to be the cool guy. My first real addiction was what other people thought of me. And so when I found alcohol, I found my outlet, because I never really liked myself. I never thought I fit in. I went to a lot of different schools as a kid. I think I did 9 schools in 12 years, right? So I was always moving in between 2 states, Ohio and Arizona. So when I had finished my football season, my senior year, I said, I'm not doing winter sports. And I started drinking, and I started drinking regularly because I had a friend that had a fake ID, so we could get it whenever we wanted. And it was every weekend. I remember in January, we tried to drink every weekend. I think almost every week, just to see if we could do it, at 17, 18 years old. And then we'd be doing case races on the way to the basketball game and like 2 hours away in Toledo and all of that. And I can tell you right now that my mentality when I drank was always, I'm going to outdrink everyone so that they like me. I'm going to show them how to drink because that's me, because I want to be liked for me. I never really liked who I was or who I was becoming. I never learned that self-love, and I didn't really learn how to process emotions. And I was really raised in fear. So for me to get rid of all of that, alcohol, that was a great level.
Was it, and sorry to ask you, Dustin, but was it a violent environment that made you live in fear like that? Or, what was it? What do you know?
Yeah,
what
it was every form of abuse you can think of, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, sexually, physical, coming at me all over in my life. I mean, it was the 80s. It was a mess, that's what I grew up in. But, it was some from my parents and then some from people in and out of my life. It really did. It had a profound effect. And, I was raised in fear, and
almost like self-hatred.
What's that?
Almost like self-hatred, like that you couldn't.
No, just that visceral fear where you can't do anything right and you can't do anything wrong. Like it's no matter what you do, you don't know if there's going to be some sort of reprisal. You don't know, what you're going to get in trouble for. it's a lot of, I do these family of origin workshops because they've really helped me. So it's taken me to look at both of my parents and find compassion and love for them. I got to say that before I really say anything else. But, I was, physically abused by my dad, and that was his expression of, I don't know if it was his expression of love, but it's just how he kind of handled things. It was
Yeah.
the most comfortable way for him to do that. So as a kid, I never knew when it was coming, right? So it's like walking on eggshells all the time. I don't know, when I'm gonna get in trouble, when I'm gonna get spanked, or what's gonna happen. And then, with my mom, I was the oldest, so I was always pushing for perfection. Like, I can't get a C because that's wrong, So if I get a C, I'm grounded for a year and I'm not allowed to talk to my friends or have, different interactions or, play video games or anything like that. And God love them. They tried their best and they both love with all their heart. But when it came to raising kids, there was a lot of tension and passion between the two of them, which could turn violent, which can turn angry. There was, being raised in drama and trauma all the time, became very addicted to it. So when I was having relationships later on in life, I didn't think a girl liked me if she wasn't treating me like shit or yelling at me, because that was the model that I received as a kid.
Yeah.
And so growing up in that kind of fear, like, you just don't know. You don't know what's coming. And the only thing you do know is fear. And, you can't seem to get on even ground or even footing because you're running from one thing to the next. Oh, you're grounded. Oh, you got spanked because you did this, or, you got hit because of that, or you're not allowed to do this or not allowed to do that. It's what kind of I grew up in. And, to say that about my parents, I also have to say, if it wasn't for them too, I wouldn't be in recovery and on my way either. But
and Dustin,
sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just about to say, like, even for the listeners, like, I'm not here to, like, put a judgment on this. Like, I'm just pretty much, like, I'm pretty much setting the table.
Yeah.
Like the reason why I do that podcast is to try my best to myself understand and have others understand, like the reason why, like one thing that I, like I've come to realize, both in terms of my own sobriety and in terms of meeting with so many people, is that that conversation truly convinces me more and more that, like this is a sickness, like it is not, like there are traumas, there sure are traumas, but there sure are moments that, like I've spoken to people that didn't have that much trauma,
right,
and still had developed the sickness of alcoholism or addiction.
Right.
And for me, the reason why I do ask kind of, like the setting the table thing is for people to not place a judgment around it, but to realize that, like it comes from everywhere, like you never fucking know.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, I appreciate it. And, like I guess my only hesitation or reservation is just in case they listen, I don't want them to not think that I don't love them, because I have these deep relationships with them now that I absolutely value. So I think it's important for me to, say that, but also, be aware, like this is where a lot of things have stemmed from. It was my formative years were very scary. And then, so when I got to a place where, because they divorced when I was 15, and after doing a couple of years of high school and being scared of alcohol, I just kind of leaned into it. I was like, I had it, and then I had an amazing like party or a time with all of my friends where it's like everyone liked me, everyone cheered for me. It was the great leveler. Alcohol made everything okay, and I could get rid of my fear. I could get rid of my anxiety. I think or thought that everyone around me liked me and I could do silly things and it's all right, because also I learned to justify my behavior from drinking. So it was easy for me to do things that I've always wanted to do or say things I've always wanted to say and be like, oh, that was just the alcohol. That wasn't me,
Yeah, absolutely. And it becomes kind of your center of attention mask, like where this becomes, you now got a bragging right. You're the one that, do more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and that's what it was. It was always about more. So I wanted to drink more and drink faster and put it on top of, and, I'd always quote unquote overcook my chicken, which was my favorite saying, because I'd just drink so much, and then it would all just hit at once, and then I just turn into drunk Dustin, which I always use my middle name for that. It was Francis, and when Francis came out, it was like, oh, anything could happen. You don't know. It's Frank the Tank. He's drunk. He's going around the party, but it was that breath of fresh air where it's like it's okay because I don't have to worry about the world around me, responsibilities, or if people like me or don't, because you know what, I'm drunk and screw them if they don't like me, but I'll find some other people, and I'll keep drinking on top of it.
I'm going to be asking a question around authority. Like the first form of external authority is pretty much like the school. Like your first authority, the parental authority you described as, I would say, like a toxic environment for, whatever, whatever it was, it seemed to have had like great impact on you. How was your relation with that second form of authority, which was like the first foreign authority, which was school? How did you interact with, like the school, and how did your school path went?
Well, I think everyone kind of knows the answer because, I started drinking and obviously, yeah, I'm going to have an attitude, but I got detention like every week, every other day. I was getting detention. I was definitely pulling away, especially academically, extremely disrespectful. I started being what I thought was the cool kid. I joined DECA, which is basically just a business-based class where I work half a day and then I go to school half a day. So I wasn't really at school all that much. I definitely bucked authority. I think I got suspended a couple of times. I had to do some like Saturday schools, didn't really care about my grades because I'd already enlisted in the Marine Corps my junior year, and that was my path. I was going to do that. That was my focus. So when it came to school, especially my senior year, like I didn't care for it. I didn't do anything. And, I was always in trouble. I was always pushing back. I was always, being disrespectful. That's just kind of who and what I was, especially like, around that time. And man, we would go on school trips and we'd sneak alcohol, put it in a mouthwash bottle, Diet Green, and boom, there you go. You're ready to rock. And, we got drunk on field trips and, just didn't care at all for anything.
And, what comes on next? I mean, like you said that, so I guess did you go to college? What was your,
So I joined the military, I joined the Marine Corps. So that was my path. And it was, I wanted to go to college, but I didn't have any money saved. And I definitely wasn't ready to go to college. So I told myself I'm going to join the Marine Corps, and I joined up, and I went to boot camp June 2001. Which was 4 months before September 11th happened. So I signed up and was committed and going before all that went down. I became a Marine actually on the Crucible, which is the final process of becoming a Marine. It's a 3-day event. They sat us all down on day 2, and they're like, hey, plane just ran into the Pentagon. And we're like, yeah, right. Like that's the most absurd thing, because remember, we don't have any outside media. So we're sitting in the grass. They're telling us that. And then they're like, oh, 2 planes just hit the trade towers. And my cousin who had went to boot camp the year before told me, hey, they're going to try and make up some things about, the world to get you all gung-ho and going. So we thought it was all made up, right? So we finish our training, get our Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, and then hit the airport on the way out. And it's like, holy cow, the world has changed. And so that had a huge effect on what I was doing next. I ended up living in California. I was stationed on Camp Pendleton with 1st Combat Engineer Battalion. And, Marine Corps birthdays tomorrow too. So Semper Fi to all those out there. And so we hit it. OIF won. I did the invasion of Iraq in 2003. We hooked and jabbed and did our whole thing for that period of time. And then, I was actually able to get drunk in Iraq as well, if you can believe that or not. We had pulled back from Baghdad right after Baghdad fell, and we were at a supply point. And, there's in Muslim countries, you have areas that are designated that are very strict and they don't have alcohol, but, you always have some sort of provider. And, we were driving back into the base, and a guy flashed a whiskey bottle, and we paid him, what we had for it. And I don't think it cost us much. And we grabbed some Coke, and we went and got drunk out in the middle of Iraq, sitting on a bunch of ammo, which was a good time. But then what really flipped the switch for me is when I came home. And I noticed a severe difference in the way that I acted and reacted and how I dealt with everything around me. I wasn't comfortable in big places, but I wanted to go to the bar and drink.
How long were you deployed, Dustin?
What's that?
How long were you deployed?
I think it was like around 6 months because after that initial wave, they pulled all the Marines out and they left it up to the Army. So I literally went from Kuwait, Iraq to Detroit. So not much change in scenery. No, I'm just kidding. It's totally different. But I ended up back in Detroit, and right after that deployment, yeah. So once they pulled us all out, that's when I kind of hit the streets again.
Pretty much a shock, I guess.
Totally. They do things now. They have a lot of things in place like decompression and different things that you have to do. Back then, that didn't really exist. I mean, we just gotten done with Afghanistan. Well, at least the first portion of Afghanistan. Then we went into Iraq, and so yeah, it was just like, here you go, kid, back on the streets. You got like 2 weeks off, and then report back into your unit. And I got drunk. I got drunk because there were things I didn't want to feel or deal with, in any capacity. So it was, I got home and I just went to the bar, and, that's when local police started to get to know me, so to speak. Because I'd always be the guy walking home, just absolutely wasted, can't stand up, like just trying to be as drunk as possible, I suppose was the goal. Chasing that, trying to be that normal guy that everyone likes, the normal version of Dustin that I don't even know what is or what exists, but like I'm trying to find that through alcohol. And,
would you assume, Dustin, that you were trying to drink off some form of post-traumatic stress, or like
most definitely? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, getting back to my unit after a couple of weeks, I started drinking more, and this was right before I was 21 too. So, I was getting into drinking pretty good before I was 21. I had a great military career. I got out as a sergeant. I'm a Marine. I love it. I never regret doing anything that I did and serving my country in the capacity that I did. But it definitely helped fuel that fire for me to really start drinking, because then I went to college. I started at Ohio State. And when I went there, I felt like I'd missed out on things, because the last 4 years I was in the military, I was going to war, I was doing these things. I see all my friends and their stories, and I hear them, and I'm like, I want that. So when I hit college, I hit the ground running. I was just drink as much and hard as fast as you can, and meet these people and talk to these people. And I found that I had a chip on my shoulder from, like definitely some what I've come to understand is PTSD, anxiety fueled and panic attack things, where it's like, I need to drink to be able to talk to and be okay with people, because I had a short fuse and I became angry really quickly. So the faster I could get drunk, the faster I could deal with you. And then, try and meet some women, because, I have this hole in my soul and I need to fill it with booze, drugs, women, or whatever it is, because I don't like who I am or who I'm becoming, which is, thematic throughout my life. And I did Ohio State for a year, and then I ended up at Arizona State, which at ASU, it's the biggest party school in the US. And it's like, I got my PhD in drinking there. I was also bartending at Scottsdale, which is a huge party town. Second, I would say, to Vegas, but you have to experience both to really get that vibe. But being a bartender, going to ASU, I was drunk. There was 7 days a week. I could tell you what's going on where, and chances are I was going there, and trying to get myself through school and drink and have a job. It was a lot of work. I got my first DUI right after I got out of the military. I wrecked my truck. I drove it into a gas station, took the pole right up to the windshield. I had to get my face sewn up. I lost that truck. Ford Motor Credit sued me because my insurance didn't cover, and I wasn't going to pay because I was embittered and all of that. And so, I spent I think I've spent more time walking than I have driving, because every time I get a license back, I get a DUI. So there I am going to ASU, riding the bus 2.5 hours to work, to go work, to ride the bus 2.5 hours back to go home. But I never really ever rode it back. I'd just take, the money that I got bartending, and I'd just spend it on a taxi cab home. So all the things that I was doing in life at that time were to fuel my drinking. Everything surrounded my partying because that's how I felt okay, and that's when I felt safe, when I was drunk, because I didn't like me. And going back and having to make amends to people and tell them, like, the reason I drank like this is because I thought you didn't really like me. I didn't feel part of your crew, and like all of that. And they'd be like, "No, we always thought you were one of us." But the disease and the way that it attacks the mentality is like, I'm never good enough. I'm not going to be good enough, and it's never going to be okay. So I need to drink more. Getting sober, I've come to understand it's not the drinking that's the problem. It's me. That's where in lies the problem, in between my ears, and drinking and doing drugs and using people, because that's one of the biggest things. I used everyone around me. That fed my disease. That's what kept me going. And I could never understand why I felt like I was crazy, or I felt like, I could never get ahead, or why this person didn't like me, or what was going on here and there and all of that stuff. It was all centered in my mind, in drinking and drugs, because drugs are a part of my story. When I worked in Scottsdale is when I started getting into doing cocaine, because then I could stay awake longer and I could drink more and I could be bigger and better and badder. I come to understand that all I was doing was trying to be anyone but me. I didn't love myself at all. And after graduating ASU, I ended up moving up to the Verde Valley where I live now, and I did my last couple of years drinking here, and it got really bad. It got really sad. It got really scary. I blamed a lot of things on everyone else and everything else around me. And, my parents never did enough. And the girl that I was dating at the time, it was all her fault because she's doing her thing. And, she doesn't love me. I'm playing the victim so I can control people around me and, like play that emotional manipulation. So that way I get what I want, but it's never what I really want. And it's never enough. So going back to the drinking. And then finally I got to a point where I did a 5-day, 6-day bender or whatever. I don't know how I drank. I lost my job. They didn't even call me to tell me I was fired. They just stopped scheduling me. I lost the house that I was living in. I had ruined a friendship from living in. I'd put myself living in a garage in Arizona, which is very, very hot, with a pile of clothes next to me on a mattress. And after a 5-day bender where it just was so bad, I woke up, I couldn't stop dry heaving. I couldn't stop shaking. And it hit me like a bolt of lightning that everything in my life centers around the fact that I drink alcohol. And that is probably the one thing I have to change my life. And I can't tell you exactly how it all played out, but I happened to walk across the street to my cousin's house, and she's got 10 years of sobriety now. She had 5 then, and I sat down, and that was the first time that I had really gotten involved in a program. A few years prior was my first taste of AA. So I was court ordered to do that pending a drug charge. And I was supposed to go for a year. I went for a month, and then I just forged the signatures for the rest of the year. So I went to maybe like 5 or 10 meetings, and then I just made them up the rest of the time. And going in there and talking with my cousin when I finally did, everything kind of came flooding back for me. And I was like, man, maybe there's a way out. Maybe there's hope, and then like a couple of days later is when I walked into my first meeting, and I saw that second step on the wall, and I got butterflies, because I felt like I was insane. But that hope hit, that hope, that way out, it might be there. So
when I need to ask you, do you remember the first few times where kind of the embryo of you waking up hungover and kind of, wondering, is that life? Is that,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
It definitely, it gets sad like that, doesn't it? I mean, thank God I haven't had a hangover in a long time, but it gets to a point where it's like, this is what it is. For me, it was always, well, that's the price I have to pay to try and drink my life away. And I wasn't thinking about drinking my life away. I was thinking like, that's just what it is. It's the price of playing, I have to have a hangover. I have to have a DUI. I have to have drug charges. I have to have the cops arrest me every other night. I have to have all of these things. So that way I feel good about myself for about 10 minutes when I'm drunk, that I get that relief that I'm looking for.
But, what I mean by that is, like the first few times or the first time that you woke up from that like that messed up feeling that, like we all got, like, like your gut wanting to just throw up and, and kind of wondering if, like it's gonna, like that can't be, like what everyone's life is like, like, you know what I'm saying? Like there is that,
I guess I didn't really get that for me because I had been drinking, since I was in high school still. So for me, the whole existential, like, is this it in the world type of feeling? I guess that didn't really hit because I was dealing with a lot of things, PTSD, fear, like all of this other stuff was all jumbled up inside of me. So for me, the relief was always drinking. So when it came to thinking like, when I'm deathly hungover, because that didn't really happen until I was like 26. I think that's the magical number where you start having hangovers. And it was like, man, I'd be down for like 2-3 days, like just hating life. Like to me, that was what it was. It was just what I had to do. And then, towards the end, it was getting to the point where I was like, man, I really messed up this weekend and I don't want to do that again. And how quickly, like, like I would be like, oh, I'm never going to drink again, or I'm never going to drink this week or whatever. How quickly it would take for me to just, as soon as I felt okay, to get back out there and do it again, So I guess I did have a little bit of that aspect where it was like, oh man, I don't want to drink again because of my actions and stuff like that. But it was never bad enough where I was like, man, I gotta quit. It never got bad enough until the end there where I was like, holy cow, I've absolutely run out of my justifications for my behavior, the lies that I tell myself, and the dishonesty that I express to everyone around me, to where it's like, man, I have to change my life,
And bring me to that moment, Dustin. Like, do you have clear memory of when did it happen? Like the kind of the context and how it happened.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty vivid. I hang on to that to today. It was. I remember I woke up in the garage that I was living in, and I stood up. I couldn't stop shaking. I couldn't get rid of this feeling like I was going to die, just this impending doom. I kept like dry heaving, like nothing was coming up because I hadn't eaten in like 2 weeks, and it was just, I drank myself into this place where I'm just out of options, basically, is what it is. I don't have any money. Everything's gone. I'm scared to death. And all I can tell you is that it's just like every dot connected in my head that, hey, drinking is the thing. Drinking is what needs to change. You've never really tried to quit drinking ever in your life. And it has beat you to this point. It has beat you down and beat you down and beat you down and put you in this little corner where that's the only thing that you have left. Like you have to try something else, because what you've been doing and how you've been trying to control your life just doesn't work.
Was any flash of, like your family coming up, like, as you said that, like you already had some of these expression, like told to you and,
right. Definitely. That's what made sense to me. It was like my cousin literally lived across the street from the last place where I got sober out of. And that's not a coincidence, like I knew that she was in the program. I knew that she had years of sobriety, and I knew that that's where I had to go, and I just found myself walking over there and asking questions, just in earnest. And it was almost zombie like. It was like I wasn't even in my body,
And what was like the first, like what was your action plan?
I didn't have any. I really didn't. I like I said, I'd lost my job. I lost everything. I couldn't even afford to get food, and I just had no plan. I just walked in there, and when I walked in there, they're like, "Hey, make 90 meetings in 90 days." And the only thing I did was 2 meetings a day after that. I had to really try.
Which is pretty much like what sums up the first step. Like for anyone that doesn't know, like the first step is to actually admit that you're powerless over that fucking sickness,
Right.
And like if that is, if you've gone through it through and through, like they would tell you that you need to like cherish a doll that you would fucking do it, like
Right. No, absolutely. I mean,
I remember going to therapy that like I just didn't know where I was going and what I was attending, and it was in February and it gets cold here, like really, really, really cold, and I remember unpacking my stuff, and someone said, yeah, we do like after dinner evening walks, like around the block. Do you want to come? I was like, yeah, sure, because I thought that must be part of the therapy, which wasn't at all. It was just like, like people wanted to take fresh air, but it was something like minus 30 that night. Like it was bad.
Yeah.
And I remember shivering badly, and it was like, is that therapy? What is going on? I'm gonna freeze to death here. And like looking back, I would have done anything, because everything I tried yet didn't work. Nothing. Like so everything I tried in terms of like, okay, brown like I'm gonna say stuff that people gonna relate to, but like brown alcohol doesn't fit me. I'm gonna go with like the transparent one, and like light beer, like I need stronger stuff because I need to get quicker, because my stomach gets sick if like I need to take too much liquid to get drunk, and like all kinds of like ways to work around the issue, that when it came down to my own bottom, it was whatever you propose, I'm going to try. Like I remember, like sitting next to my dad in his car crying, and he actually said what actually saved my life, which was, don't you want to help yourself? And I probably I would consider my first step done right there on the spot. And I said, whatever, like, like whatever it takes, like, what are you proposing? And he said, well, like we've looked into therapy centers, and, like, maybe, like you should. And I was like, yeah, whatever, like, whatever, because, like everything I tried yet, like nothing has worked. I'm going to stop a full week, and I'm going to stop 2 months, and then come back to, like full throttle, and just trying to drink back what I had not drank for the past 2 days, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And I mean, like every option. And so it always makes me smile when someone tells me, well, they told me to do 90 meetings, which they did to me too, like do 90 meetings, 90 days.
It's totally a recovery thing that comes from the industry, of recovery centers, but it works, but like, just like you, I was so desperate. Like it was the first time in my life I didn't want to have the God conversation. Like, and by that, I mean, I didn't want to argue, religion and all that stuff, because I loved doing that when I was drunk in a bar. Let me tell you why you're wrong and all that stuff. Like I was so beat up. I'm like, I'm ready to do anything. If it takes me needing to have a higher power, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because, like I had never attended a meeting before that. I didn't know what it was. The only thing I had was probably some movie, movie, sighting. I mean, like the
dark standing up in front of like the whole thing. Like, my name's I'm an alcoholic.
And the dark, somber, like full of drunk, like shitty place,
smoke everywhere.
Shitty place that everyone looked like they were fucking drunk actually.
Like they just come off like a 2-month bender, and they're just And so but, I mean, honestly, no one comes into AA on a winning streak. I mean, I surely wasn't on top of the world, but to go in there. But the important thing, what really helped me connect to, was the people in there. To see the smiling faces and people clap when I said, this is my first meet, and like just all of that energy. That's what got me started, That's where I dig in.
Oh, wow, that's interesting, Dustin. Like I think I'm more egoistic than that, or more of a loner. I mean, I was just fighting me against me,
Right.
and still to this day, like I'm. To be quite honest, I'm still 15 years plus in, scared shitless of relapse, scared shitless of relapse.
Yeah.
And
But that's
I would
that's where
say
you
that,
gotta be though. I mean, like, because I know that it's gonna take it away from me if I do that. I'm
yeah,
slowly getting to a place where it's like nothing's gonna take me down. I've walked through death sober. I've walked through losing friends, relationships. I've become and grown into something that I never thought was possible. And the more that I strengthen what I do in just doing the small things, because like I'm absolutely scared of relapse because you know what? I'm a fucking alcoholic and I'm either in, sorry for swearing. Sorry, I apologize for that. I'm either in recovery or I'm in relapse, and it's one or the other for me, because that's just how I've come to understand it.
and to this day, like there was some post therapeutic bi-weekly meeting, and I remember saying that for as long as I'll live, pride and fear will fuel my recovery, and it's not. Like it's not a weakness. It's not something that I'm ashamed of.
Right.
Um, Pride of the time that I've kept sober,
Hmm.
and scared of relapsing.
I love that.
And
I love that.
like, and there's nothing wrong about that. Like, and I, like I will defend those feelings forever, because
Yeah.
like if I'm, because I've seen too many people not being scared of relapse,
Yeah.
and playing with life. Like just playing with death. Like
Yeah.
in not truly believing that next time could be the last time, and
Mhm.
God knows, like God knows, some we've never seen again, and some we've seen again, but they were damaged.
Yeah, no,
Um,
absolutely. I mean, like we've had so many overdoses going on, and you see people, they go out and they test the waters, and a lot of them don't make it back in, or they don't make it back in whole, or it beats the snot out of them. But you're right, like you have to have a healthy fear of it. That's why like finding a bottom sufficient to want recovery, finding a bottom that you can be like, okay, I'm done touching the hot stove. I need to change my life, and it's just as simple as that. And thank God that I'm a low bottom drunk, because if I hadn't drank away all my friends, family, and everything around me, like I don't know if I would have gotten sober. Don't know if I would have taken the higher power question as easily as I had. But I came in because I had a chip on my shoulder, especially being raised Catholic and all that stuff. And I love Catholicism; it's beautiful and all that stuff. But my personal experience was like having to figure out what makes sense for me. And I came to realize that religion is for people who are scared of going to hell. Spirituality is for us that have been there. And since spirituality is the crux of what it means for me to be sober and get sober and have that healthy respect, like that's what I have to do. I have to do those simple things that are asked of me to continue to be able to enjoy my life into today. And that doesn't mean that life's perfect. It's just like I have tools and skills and abilities to meet the challenges as they arise.
and to be quite frank, I mean, I found my higher power in rooms.
Yeah.
Like
And it's
like
perfect. I mean, what I love all the different acronyms for God, like group of drunks, the room, or gift of desperation, which is what I had, or good orderly direction, or whatever that means and looks like to you. The
yeah,
beauty of all these programs is we can take it and we can run with it.
absolutely. And there was like there was a lot of debate, like it was a 21-day therapy, and like a lot of, like we talked a lot about this, and like I came down to just saying, guys, like the rooms we attend are full of people that we wouldn't have given 5 cents, like like trust with 5 cents of our money, and yet like by exchanging and talking to each other, we seem to be, like we seem to be to stay sober. There was that, and there was like birth of child. I don't, like I don't know, like when the birth of my kids came to be, and that was way before I went to therapy. But like I remember saying, well, I didn't do that. That's not me. That's something else. I don't know what it is, but that's not me. So, I pretty much.
That's a type of spiritual experience, having a child. What a beautiful thing. What a a thing that happens outside of ourselves, because what I found is I was lost in selfishness. It was everything around me and what they said and what they thought and what they did and all of these other things. But like to have a child and, do that work. And I applaud you for a therapist too. Like I have one too, and it saved my life because I've had a rough year this last year in sobriety, but like those spiritual experiences, those little God shots, those things that come and go, like that's what keeps me fed. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me, saying yes when I want to say no, when they ask me to do things, like sponsor or whatever. But, that's.
And I shopped, like I actually, that's another thing that's important for people, like it's that I shopped around my, like the people close to me.
Right.
Like I have, like my sponsor is actually someone that I spoke to and chose wisely, like that like I wanted to have someone that could challenge me, that I could challenge myself, that could challenge the literature that I was going through, that I could challenge, like all of that. That was quite important for me. And so,
I mean, it's a big connection. I wasn't as savvy. I suppose we just let God do that for me. But like I went in and there was a guy that I just connected with, and they say, "Oh, find someone that has what you want." And he had what I wanted, which was a driver's license and his bills paid. Yes. So that's why I was like, "I'll take you and let's do this." And if you ask him to this day too, he'll tell you I drug him through the steps because I was so ready. I was craving a change in life. I knew the way that I was living was wrong. Like, and if this is the answer, like that's what I want to do, but I just kind of let go, I guess, with reckless abandon and be like, here's all of my stuff. What do I do? How do I do this? Show me the way. And he did. And it was such a beautiful experience,
The last question I'll ask you is, like, what's your life now? Like, how do you, how's your life now?
Man, I can tell you honestly, I'm beyond blessed and things happen, right? So like I said, like last year I started to take on my PTSD and anxiety from, my military service and all that stuff. I really started to take it on head on because it was starting to show up. What I think happened is when I went over there, like my soul left my body, so when I came back home, it was really easy for me to drink and tear away any shred of moral decency or anything that I had through using and all of that stuff. And as I've gotten sober, and I hit that 5-year mark, there's something about that 5-year mark. I don't know. They say that's when you get your marbles back, but I think that's
was that like a defense mechanism, you think?
I 100% do. I think it was a way for me to be able to get through all of that and then come back full circle,
Yeah.
And for me to get that back and to start to do better, I have to, work on myself and continue to work on myself, which I love nowadays. So as my soul is coming back into my body and I'm working with my therapist and I'm gaining these deeper understandings of myself. And at the same time, as I find these understandings, I find love, I know in recovery, when bad things happen, that means good things are on the other side. So like anytime anything happens in my life, like it's going to suck and it's going to suck for a little while, but it passes. We always say it comes to pass, but like going through it was probably one of the hardest things that I've had to go through, but I got on the other side, and today I'm so blessed. I mean, you know you started your own thing. I started my own thing when I got sober. I said, I'm never going to be a bartender again. So I laid on my bed and I taught myself graphic design, website design and development. I taught myself how to do marketing and social media. And I got these killer jobs. My first job after 1 year of sobriety was working for a local winery, believe it or not. And I spent 2 years on the road selling wine. I didn't have any issues with alcohol. I had, like it says, like we recoil from it as if it were a hot flame. Like I didn't have any issues doing it. And I noticed as I was going out there, I was talking to a lot of people about them wanting to get in recovery or them having a bad time with alcohol. So it was kind of funny how that all played out, but it was a life-changing job that gave me invaluable skills. So today I own my own company and we've been doing great for the last 3 years. It's been absolutely amazing. And I've been able to live a life that I've never dreamed was possible ever. I live in a beautiful home. I've got the best friends. I don't worry about money. I don't worry about bills getting paid, or I'm accountable for my actions. I can tell people and speak my truth without having to worry about shame or how they think about it, or their feelings about it. My family and our relationships are stronger. Yesterday I just bought a bunch of property up north. I'm going to make a little ranch for myself. I mean, like, these are things that were not happening when I was still drinking and using. I was walking places. I was riding the bus. I was making people angry and they didn't want to hang out with me, or they'd, try and finagle like, oh, we need to go out, but let's not invite him, because I was the low down dirty drunk. That's all I wanted to do. But I think more importantly than anything else is I found love for myself, and I found compassion. I found the opportunity and ability to grow and use the tools that I've been given to live life, because I didn't get sober to be miserable or to go to meetings all the time or to do whatever. I got sober to live life, be happy and free. And I get to give back. Last 2 weekends ago, we had a roundup, and it's probably the only in-person roundup that happened in Arizona. And it was so needed during this time that I think we had around 400 people show up from all over. We flew in speakers from Florida and California, and they nailed it. They knocked it out of the park. You want to talk about an emotional weekend? It's people in recovery in this program during a time of crisis, hanging out, just trying to get by, just trying to hang on for one more day and do this thing. And for me to be able to give back in ways like that on these committees or with my sponsees, or in any way, shape, or form I can, I do it because I only have a life today because of this program. And I don't, like my friend Donna says, I don't fit AA into my life. I fit my life into AA because that's how important it is. After my sobriety, everything else comes. Family, friends, work, job, whatever. None of that matters. None of that would exist if I didn't have my sobriety, and I'm grateful for it. And
that's precisely it.
Amazing people. So
that's precisely it. Like that, like everything you just said, like everything in terms of, like even the planning and, like the stuff that's coming up in your life, like you could have never imagined it. Being fuckface,
right.
Like again, like my swearing is bad, but like I tend to get passionate about this and passionate about the old all of my recordings.
Yeah, well, me too. I mean, and it's such a big deal that you do this and keep doing what you do, because if it saves one life, it's more than worth it, and that's how I see things.
And like I have like I try to send us positive vibes into people that like just don't know about this, like and don't know that like 112 episodes in, like you come to realize that like you can come from all aspects of life, and you can come from all kind of bottoms of barrels, and jump up and just like pretty much like rise back like a phoenix and do stuff that you would have never imagined when you're in your darkest days, like, and for me, like it's I mean, like it's not only a message of hope, but it, like it's pretty much a message of enlightenment, like in people realizing that wherever you are in your life right now, like in your most darker moments, like just hang on, like and like find a way to talk to someone else and share like how you're feeling, and there is hope, like, and there are stuff that you can't even imagine that's going to happen to you when you're going to take, like take more control over, like that sickness that is the alcoholism and or addiction.
And I agree with you. I mean, if anything, it's there's hope. It's not over, and like, your podcast, like it's a beacon of light that hopefully leads down that dark hallway to freedom or whatever. But like, the biggest thing I think we can ever share is hope. There's a lot of hope, and it can get dark, but there's always a way out. So I totally agree with you there, Alex.
Yeah. And, like for those that, like are still, like kind of juggling with the idea, I mean, like it definitely can get darker, but I can assure you that it can get much more lighter and, like much more bright and much more positive and sunnier, you
Right.
know. So,
Right.
you know, for me, it's just, yeah, I mean, you know, like this is probably like the journey of that podcast for me has been, not only such an humbling experience. I mean, like, people from all over, you know, like today I realized that, you know, like my agenda was pretty much, had, you know, like was emptied of, you know, like scheduled recording, and I started sending a few invites, and the response was so positive. I was like, holy shit, you know, like I don't know these people, and you know, like they just say yes. And I'm like, wow, you know, like I was touched, humbled, and you know, like kind of, you know, like it was, anyways, you know, like it makes it's flattering and just, it made me so happy today. But you know, like and you're part of that, you know, like you've accepted, like right off the bat you said, hey, I'm in, and I was like, holy shit, you know, like I don't know, you know.
Right. But that's what I mean, that's what we do, I suppose. We say yes and we try and give back, because there could be something that you say that someone latches onto that can absolutely change their life, because at one point that was what it was for us, you know, like with your dad, and like, you know, me with figuring out that, you know, that second step, like I'm not insane, you know, it could be anything that just absolutely changes your life. So, you know, for me, from my end and my program, like, hell yeah, like I'm going to do this. I'm going to hopefully someone hears it and change their life. If not, I met a great friend in the program. So
that's fantastic. You know, like, and same for me. The last thing is, you know, like, I found you on social media. Is this something that you share to others? You know, like, is this something that, and I haven't asked you before we started recording, but you know, like, are you promoting, like, you know, do you have like a social media presence that, you know, like kind of share, you know, like the positive vibes that, you know, like that comes out of you, and, you know, like kind of, do you have that? Is there a way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, I think it's important that, you know, as I've grown up and gotten more sober, like, that I share inspiration and things that I've accomplished and have happened in my life just by doing these simple things. Like, you know, people can always reach out to me. You know, my last name is Coressel. It's spelled Coressel. Generally, you can find me on all social media because it's such a random name, but you know, on Instagram, you can find me there. And you know, I always welcome anybody to reach out, because you know, it just happens to be like what I do is just give back to people whenever I can, you know. So like when you reached out, I caught it. I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'll do it, you know. So, you know, if you're ever struggling, reach out, drop a friend request, DM, like it doesn't matter. You can find Dustin Coressel pretty much on any platform, because my business does do social media. So I'm kind of everywhere, but you know,
Awesome.
I'm always happy to have a talk to try and inspire.
And so for the listeners, all of the links and all of the ways for finding Dustin are going to be found in the description of the episode. And so, you know, like, no worries, you know, like you just scroll down, you're going to find him. And again, I want to thank you for participation, Dustin. It was a pleasure meeting with you and getting to know you.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you know, like for me, it's just, I'm having a freaking blast, you know. So
that's what it's about, man. That's why we get sober. And Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you. And
awesome.
Thanks for the invite. I'm glad to be on here and be a part of.
Thank you, Dustin. Have a good night. Take care.
Bye.